pass over to Gillian. I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's great, thank you. Share the screen. Do you see that okay? Just double checking. Okay, perfect, thank you. So thanks everyone. This talk is the impact of coaching on the walking spinal community's motivation to engage in physical activity. I'm a PhD student at Robert Goddard University in Aberdeen, and I've submitted my thesis and await my viva, which will be spring. So brief background of the PhD itself, which is the impact coaching and mentoring has on this particular community, behavioural change and motivation to being physically active. So the walking spinal community is a subset of the spinal cord injury community. So you hear of SCI very commonly, but less so about those who have the ability to walk. And with this PhD, I examine non-elite sports, getting physical, but not at the elite level, coaching and mentoring as a talking sport, defining what the walking spinal community is, the labelling and perception of ability, and behavioural change and motivations. So just to address what some of these gaps were that the PhD has gone into. So coaching and mentoring are commonly examined in relation to SCI, yet is very limited with regards to those who can walk, as I've already mentioned. So a recent study by Lawrenson and Co. 2022 looked at the leisure activity, looking at quality and quantity. There's also Jannings and Pryor 2012 who examined this particular community, but overall you will see far more on the SCI themselves, which have the level of paralysis. There's a gap in knowledge to assess coaching and mentoring within the same study, as in normally they look at coaching or they'll look at mentoring, but they don't bring them together. This PhD research does bring them together, as well as also offering a neutral group as a comparison to understand really as a true level how impactful coaching and mentoring has on this group. The benefits of exercise and being active are obviously well known in academia and the media, in industry, but there are barriers to what's allowing the walking spinal community to engage. And this PhD is really trying to get underneath the skin of this to how we can better help and support those who have such an injury. And the walking spinal community can also be overlooked due to the invisible nature. There'll be many people who have a walking spinal condition that you may not even know unless they share that. And that's something that as a coach, we need to discover and highlight and discuss and bring out the best of that information, engage, so that we can actually bring out the best of their ability. Also, body confidence barriers exist. There's a real worry about being judged by themselves and by others, as Bailey and Co have also highlighted. So briefly, overall some findings, this is just some just to go over, which are obviously relevant for today. Coaching and mentoring are effective platforms to supporting the walking spinal community. You have a profound impact in your position and it should be treated carefully. Depth of understanding is better now about behaviours and motivations surrounding being physically active, but also looking at the physical and psychological impact the Sweet and Co have gone into, but also looking at the support that sits around each individual. And highlighting individual is important. Don't just term everyone as the same. We're all individuals, and anyone who's had a walking spinal condition has a very different experience. Perception of injury and capability are subjective and potentially limiting by said person, but also us as coaches. So we need to be looking at what do we perceive as limitations and address these bias, as William and Co 2014 has also highlighted. And also this research has brought forward a conceptual model and framework looking at state of readiness, behaviour constructs and influences. So why should this even be of interest to you today? Well, really, we have 1 in 7 people in the UK sustaining a walking spinal injury every day. Furthermore, you have 80% of the population in the UK who are going to have a level of back pain in their lifetime. And this could easily be someone that you're working with, whether that back pain becomes something more degenerative or it's just something that's like a sprain and so on. But it's going to impact you one way or another, whether it's personally or within the work. So it is important to just consider what is this walking spinal community and what can help motivate them. These are looking at the adapting to change models, and I've purposely highlighted 3 here. You've seen the grief curve, the shock into denial and confusion, and then coming out the other end. And there are various ones here that really look at the productivity, how it dips, in fact, nearly falls off the cliff type thing, until there's a bottom out because of acceptance and moving back up. However, as a coach, how impactful would it be from that shock area on the left, where it says endings and denial, that you could reduce that depth that it goes down to, that you can help bridge that gap from the now, the big change, to getting back enjoying, excited, and being physically active, whether that's elite or non-elite area. And as a coach, you have this opportunity as a sports psychologist, as a PT, and such like. But it's quite important. There's lots of emotions. It is a very emotional change to someone. However, we can help to reduce the impact of psychological, even if not the physical. When we look at coaching behaviour itself, coaching offers a measurable form of support to transition from the now to desired, as Hart and Co have highlighted in 2001, as well as Prochaska and Co in 2022 have actually stated that positive change requires behavioural change, but coaches have a profound impact. So again, we can help that whole behavioural change motion, acceptance, and actually bringing out the best in our abilities. This walking spinal condition does not mean inability. And again, that's removing any bias from the individual, from teammates, and you as a coach. There is a way to move forward. You may just have to slightly adapt the training. You may have to look at different techniques, how to perform, and even perhaps at some point, maybe changing sport, but it does not mean inability. When you look at behavioural change, as part of my research, I've looked at motivations, opportunities, and capability, which forms the COM-B model by West and Reiki in 2020, which highlights all the different aspects to consider when looking at behavioural change so that you can help someone move forward. There's also, though, the whole element of the support that coaching brings. And also, furthermore, you have professional coaching, you have the medical support, social support, everything that encompasses that. Motivational reasons from the walking spinal community to being active. It was very interesting doing the study because where it was just to be active and get back to life as it was, that didn't bring enough change. We actually stopped, having the motivation and the engagement in whatever sport it was. However, where there was an emotive motivational reason, that became a lot stronger to help them work through the pain barriers and, the changes from their life. So for instance, as a coach, really look at the family and social interactions, get to know the individual personally, because if you can start understanding why it really is important and who are their influences and what they would help them to build them up, you can actually, as a coach, have a more effective program as a result. There's an element of regaining life control and independence. So although there may be some changes and adaptability, they want to feel listened to, they want to feel back in control and making decisions and taking action. This community also sees a deep motivational reason as improving health and well-being. It has been impacted, they've just gone through something traumatic and they're starting to adapt and find a way forward. As a coach, you can help and support that. Building confidence and enjoyment in what they do, whether that means things have to be slightly different, it doesn't matter. It's that whole self-belief and growing in confidence, whether it's with themselves or teammates or friends, and you as a coach as well. Your rapport with the individual is going to be really important in helping this behavioural change. And finally, for the point of these slides, is pain management. Now, as Collier 2018 highlights, pain is very perceptive, it's very subjective. And the more you think about it, the worse it can get. However, by taking that focus and giving it into exercise, it can actually help manage pain levels and looking beyond the pain and finding new, healthier ways of coping. So here on the left is a trans-theoretical model. And so if you think of where you are in behaviour intention to change, you have pre-contemplation, just considering I would like to do something, through to maintenance, where you've hit the level and then it's continuing on. There was another stage of termination where Prochaska and de Clermont, who originated this in the 1970s, this model, and it's continued to evolve. However, it could be argued termination is not possible. You always have a level of maintenance, hence why termination has been removed. Ferrin and Massa in 2013 considered this model in relation to physical activity and interventions. So think where your team are, or your individual from the walking spinal community is in relation to behaviour and intention and behaviour change. And then with that, what would help motivate them to move through the different steps? And are you addressing all what actually truly motivates them in an emotive state? By looking at where they are, the trans-theoretical model, also known as TMM, and their motivation, don't forget, as mentioned with the COM-B model, also opportunity and capability. At every stage, you should be considering as a coach, do they have more ability than they believe? Do you have to build the confidence? Do you have to try things out, at least have the willingness to maybe do different sport or actually different programs in the sport that they actually wish to continue with? Also, what are the opportunities to do that? Is there something else they can be doing out with the training that also keeps that motivation? And again, by addressing these, you keep moving down the line from the behaviour intention to change and avoiding slide back, which can be common. And don't forget the support. Support as a coach, the medical teams, the social. There are a number of key influences that will change the outcome. So whatever you're working on in this field, there's lots of influencing factors, but you have an opportunity to bring the best out by addressing these. So what impact does coaching bring to the walking spinal community's motivation? There's also a number here, and just to pick some, like the increased engagement in sessions, if someone's seeing there's also measurable impact and there's progress and they're seeing there's this positive change, they then take it out into other parts of their life. The behavioural motivation and mindset, has a ripple effect. So your coaching not only impacts performance within the sport, it goes far greater, and it's actually a very much healthier way of someone managing their walking spinal condition. The impact is far-reaching, and it also opens up their minds to new ways and new things to try, rather than only saying, but I've always done it this way, which there's a level of fear when you have a walking spinal condition. So the walking spinal community and your coaching practice, and this is the takeaways for today, just things to think about. Look beyond perceived capabilities. Explore the new physical and psychological boundaries and opportunities with whoever it is that you're working with. It's really important that we start looking at things from a different lens at times, and also remove our own bias. We may feel we're not being biased, but watching your communication, and as a coach, you may be, if you start noticing, favouring maybe those who do not have such a walking spinal condition, and giving more opportunities to others. So make sure it's fair. Be clear on the commitment, expectation, goals. The reason I say that, in the research for the coaching, everyone had to commit to the full sessions, and there was profound change over the time. Those who did mentoring were able to drop out should they wish, and those who did not go the full commitment of the sessions actually had less progression. So be an enabler of opportunities, really think outside the box, what would bring the best, whether it's short-term or long-term spinal condition, you can actually make profound change. Establish what support systems will assist. Chemtop and Co in 2018 look at the medical support. Wu and Williams 2001 highlighted how important friends and family are. Really dig deep, find out what they are, who are the influences, who are the barriers, and bring that into your coaching. And then lastly, walking spinal condition does not mean a lack of potential. If you think of Usain Bolt, who has scoliosis, golfer Tiger Woods, who's had multiple surgeries on the spine, still at the top of his game, Dwight Howard, professional basketball player, herniated discs, and yet continued to play at the top. Olympian snowboarder Katie Ormerod, who broke her back 2018 and back to the Olympics some years later. There's so much potential. Just, as a coach, you have the opportunity to really make a huge positive difference. And thank you very much. And there's different ways to contact me through my coaching business or through the Robert Gordon University. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gillian. That was super interesting, and super interesting from a sports psychology perspective, especially with injury. And I know but the very first athlete that I worked with was a karate player who was out injured, couldn't play because of a spinal injury. And leading on from Gareth's talk, we know that perfectionism, in perfectionism field, actually, there's research to show that those with spinal cord injury are less likely to react positively if they're perfectionistic. So if they present as perfect, they then therefore are more likely to react negatively. So it's a very nice actually lead on from Gareth's talk. Anyway, I'll shut up and open up. Any questions? Gareth's got a question. Good.
Yeah, it kind of follows from that, Tracy, as you might expect. But you mentioned, Gillian, at the start around like the importance of understanding the individual. And I wondered whether, to what extent the work and what you've found so far suggests certain individual factors might be important.
Yeah, it definitely is an individual. We can't just, do across the board sweeping statement. And with that, I've discovered, it goes back to those influences, who are the people behind who are giving support or actually not support at times. There was certain situations where there was frustrations and real emotions over the family not understanding the changes because there's an invisible nature to it, or the frustration of no longer being able to do impact sport. Although most of the coaches came back and did sport and a wide variety of sport, there had to be choices and sacrifices made. So that was quite hard, but it is that going down into the individual's capability, what they're actually able to do, and then testing that, because sometimes we can do more than what we believe, there is that element, but then also keeping it very mindful of what would help best propel them forward.
Thanks.